Thank you for joining us. Now, over the last couple of days, we've pulled back a little bit on the content to try and figure out and take stock and see how we can improve our offering on this YouTube channel. I've had a bunch of conversations with people to try and figure out what we can do better. And I think the most telling conversation was the one I had with my mom, when she basically said, can you just give us the news? Because I was asking her what we can do to improve our content. And she said, can you just give us the news at 9 o'clock? Because nobody's giving us the news at 9 o'clock anymore. We had an AMA a couple of days ago when most of you said the same thing, that 10 minutes of news would be useful. So this is what we're attempting to do. We've put together a news bulletin, old school style. And there are no opinions at all in this. It's just the news. It's just what happened today. It's a quick 10 minutes. So I'm hoping that you find this useful and you leave us comments and feedback at the bottom of this video on what you think. Of course, the production quality of this, we will attempt to keep improving it. But for now, we're putting this out to see if this is something that works and if this is something that you find useful. So please give us your feedback. All right, so it is the 11th of February, 2021. Here's your news for today. To begin with, the Indian Army has shared a video of the ongoing disengagement process that's currently taking place in Ladakh. Now, this video shows Indian and Chinese tanks withdrawing or disengaging from the region after a formal meeting. This comes after Defense Minister Rajnath Singh made a statement at the floor of Parliament in Rajya Sabha saying, and I quote, a sustained dialogue with China has led to the agreement on the disengagement along the banks of Pangong Lake. He also said the Chinese side will keep its troops to Finger 8 on the northern bank, and the Indian troops will stay at Finger 3. Similar action will be taken at the south bank on both sides, by both sides. Any structures that have been built by both sides since April last year will be removed. Now, the minister said, and I quote, the implementation of this agreement, which started yesterday on the north and the south bank of the Pangong Lake, will substantially restore the situation that was existing prior to the commencement of the standoff last year. He also said that India has never accepted China's unjustified claims and would not allow even an inch of its territory to be taken, end quote. Moving on, 4 days after the glacial disaster in Uttarakhand, rescue operations are still underway. Rescuers launched a drilling operation on Thursday at the Tapovan tunnel, where it's estimated that 30 to 35 people are trapped still after that flash flood 4 days ago. So far, 34 people have been confirmed dead and 170 people are still missing. The continuous flow of slush and silt remains a major obstacle, between rescuers and those trapped inside the tunnel, says Vivek Kumar Pandey, the spokesperson of the lead rescue agency, the Indo-Tibetan Border Police. Now, till Wednesday, 120 meters of slush from the mouth of the tunnel was cleared, and those trapped inside are stated to be located 180 meters inside that tunnel. But of course, time might be running out for the people trapped inside because there are two concerns. One is that their oxygen might be depleting, and the other is that the really cold temperature will lead to hypothermia. Well, on a very positive, slightly positive note, 2 people who were listed as missing in the flash floods came home to their homes safely yesterday after being stranded at different areas of the Chamoli district. The Indo-Tibetan Border Police personnel have been carrying ration items to villages that have been cut off because of the flash floods. In other news, the price of petrol and diesel have now been increased for the 3rd straight day. Petrol was increased 25 paise per litre, diesel went up 30 paise per litre today. It takes the price of petrol in New Delhi to 87 rupees and 85 paise. In Mumbai, petrol is at 94 rupees and 36 paise. Diesel is at 78 rupees in Delhi and 84 rupees and 94 paise, almost 85 rupees in Mumbai. All these prices are record highs. They've never been this high. While the increase really is linked to the price of crude in the global market, you must also remember that after import, after refine, transport to the dealer and dealer commission, the price of the fuel is at about 30 rupees a litre. Everything above that is state and central taxes, which is why it varies from state to state. The Union Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Dharmendra Pradhan, speaking at Rajya Sabha, said the government is not currently considering cutting taxes on petrol or diesel. To give you an idea and perspective of the kind of increase that we've seen, oil marketing companies have hiked the price of petrol and diesel by about 3 rupees and 90 paise just this year and since the beginning of this year. The center had hiked the taxes on petrol by 13 rupees last year and on diesel by 11 rupees last year to boost revenues because of the low economic activity because of that lockdown. And in other news, the Union Minister for Home, Amit Shah, said the process of granting Indian citizenship to refugees under the CAA, so the implementation of the CAA, will begin once the process of the COVID vaccination has ended. Now, the minister was speaking at an election rally in Kuch Behar in Bengal, which has a large population of Matuas. Now, this is a section of Hindu community that migrated to India either during the partition or after the creation of Bangladesh. Now, many of them have been given Indian citizenship, but a sizable section of that population has not. The minister accused opposition parties of misleading minorities about the Citizenship Amendment Act, and he said its implementation will not impact the citizenship of Indian minorities. He also said that the Modi government had made this promise in 2018, and when it was voted into power in 2019, it kept the promise of a new citizenship law. He said the country was hit by COVID, which is what stalled the implementation, but after the vaccination process is over, the implementation of CAA will begin. Now, we know that there is a standoff right now between the Indian government and Twitter. The Union Minister for Electronics and IT, Ravi Shankar Prasad, told Parliament that strict action will be taken if social media is misused to spread fake news or fuel violence. Now, specifically naming social media platforms Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp, LinkedIn in Rajya Sabha, the Union Minister said, and I quote, "You have millions of followers in India. You are free to do business and make money, but you have to follow the Indian Constitution," end quote. Following the Republic Day violence, you'll remember at Red Fort, the government asked Twitter to block nearly 1,300 Twitter handles for allegedly spreading misinformation and provocative content. Now, these include accounts of journalists, activists, politicians, but many of those accounts are said to be pro-Khalistani and pro-separatist. Twitter issued a statement yesterday saying certain number of those accounts have in fact been withheld in India, which means that you can't see the content in India, but you can outside of India. But it also said that accounts of journalists, activists, and politicians will not be withheld because it's detrimental to free speech. In other news, Netflix and Amazon Prime will adopt a self-regulation toolkit. Now, this is according to a report in the Hindustan Times by Diksha Bharadwaj. This is an exclusive report. Now, the report says that the Internet Mobile Association of India, along with 17 signatories, including Netflix, Amazon, Z5, Viacom, which is Voot, Disney Hotstar, Sony Live, basically almost all of them, have adopted a self-regulation toolkit for content that focuses on grievance redressal and complaints committees. To give you a background on this story, this comes after the IMB ministry expressed its displeasure over the number of complaints it was receiving about shows on streaming platforms. The latest one was the complaints it received about Thandav on Amazon Prime. Complaints basically said that the show disrespected religious sentiment. Now, the government is working on its own parallel code, which will govern OTT platforms. And the Union Minister Prakash Javadekar told Parliament last week that the guidelines for OTT platforms are almost finalized. Officials from the Information Broadcast Ministry have told Hindustan Times that they will review the implementation of this toolkit and respond accordingly. Now, this toolkit or this code basically says that the signatories will set up internal committees within their grievance redressal system to address complaints that come from either viewers or authorities or government. Moving on, air travel is likely to cost more. The Civil Aviation Ministry today increased the lower and the upper limits on domestic airfares by 10 to 30%, which will stay until the 31st of March. Now, you remember last year, the ministry placed limits on airfares in May when it opened up domestic air travel after the lockdown. It basically created 7 slabs based on the duration of the flight and put limits to what the airlines could charge. So for an example, the first band was for flights that were 40 minutes or less. and the band was 2,000 rupees to 6,000 rupees. Now, that band has been expanded to 2,200 to 7,800 rupees. So all of the bands have been increased in a similar fashion. Now, this would mean that passengers like you and I will have to pay a little more, but it's apparently coming as a relief to the airline industry that has really suffered a massive beating because of COVID. Reports have told us that all of the Indian carriers last year adopted cost-cutting measures where there were pay cuts, there was leave without pay, and there was also laying off of several employees. This will come as some sort of relief to the aviation industry. The Maharashtra government has decided to make it compulsory to submit a COVID-19 negative report for anyone entering the state of Maharashtra from Kerala. Incoming passengers from Kerala will have to present an RT-PCR negative test report for samples that have been collected 96 hours before arrival. Now, there are similar travel restrictions in the state of Maharashtra already in place for Rajasthan, Delhi, Goa, and Gujarat. But this comes at a time when Kerala's active cases have touched 64,390, the highest in the country right now. Moving on to some international news. The head of the Tokyo Olympics Organizing Committee is going to resign after facing backlash over sexist comments. Earlier this month, Yoshiro Mori, at an Olympics committee meeting, said that women talk too much at meetings. Now, while Mori apologized after that news came out and said he was not going to resign, he faced a very strong backlash from both Japan and internationally, and 500 Olympic volunteers quit since that incident. He has now announced that he will in fact resign. The Twitter CFO, Ned Segal, has confirmed Donald Trump's ban on the platform on Twitter is permanent. They said it won't be revoked even if he ran for president again. Now, Trump's profile, you remember, was deactivated on the 8th of January after Twitter determined that his posts incited violence at the Capitol building. Segal has claimed that anyone inciting violence won't be allowed on Twitter. He said Trump was removed when he was president, reiterating that other public officials won't be treated any differently. France is considering setting a legal age for consent at 15 years for the first time ever. This comes after the hashtag #MeTooIncest social media campaign, in which several citizens have shared stories of suffering sexual abuse at the hands of family members while they were minors. Now, it's said that many abusers would claim that they had the consent of their victims in order to receive less harsh punishments, because while sex with minors was illegal, there was no legal age for consent. France is now going to remedy that by adding a legal age of consent, but at 15 years. But that's a wrap from me. Like I said, do leave us your feedback. Tell us if you found this useful, how we can improve it, and the frequency with which you would like these news updates. For now, thanks for watching. Good night.